This broadcast is the property of Codependents Anonymous. Reproduction without written permission from Codependents Anonymous is not permitted.
So welcome, everybody, to the International CoDA Conference. If you're just getting here, we're having a great day so far, a lot of great feedback, a lot of amazing stories about healing. And we're excited to be able to kick off the tail part of this conference. But I just wanted to open up with the Serenity Prayer, if everybody's good with that, just to get recentered as we jump into living centered. So we'll start with a moment of silence, followed by the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. All right. So really excited to be here today. I'm doing something a little different with the format. We are technically, I was signed up as a speaker and I've kind of turned it into a hybrid workshop when I found out that it was 80 minutes. I was thinking that what might make the most sense is to do most of the Q&A towards the back half of this talk. What I have done is I've got several of the members from the Living Centered CoDA group here in Lafayette, Louisiana, that are in the office with me at different stations, and they have volunteered to share their experience, strength, and hope on some of the items that we'll be talking about today. So I'm really excited about that. This is a talk that really has changed my life. I've been in CoDA for 4 years now. Before that, I was in another 12-step program for almost 14 years. The 12 steps have changed my life completely. And I'm just so grateful to be here today. So I just realized my full name is on there. Sorry. Frankie R is my name. And, you know, one of the things that has been really important for me is this idea of living centered or living balanced. And I'm somebody who, for a long time, didn't really know what that could possibly look like. And I've tried many, many different ways to using my, the negative codependent tools or the opposite of codependent tools to try and achieve balance or a centered life run on my own self-will or my own willpower. And so, you know, that's like a really big thing for me, is that I've got to continually work this program. The reason I keep coming back after all these years is that I have no idea how to get a centered life, how to have a balanced life without continually applying the steps and principles from this program to my everyday life. You know, the first thing that I had to really come to in this program, as we all do, is that I'm powerless over others. And that comes out in so many different ways. And it's interesting how complicated it can seem, and yet how simple it is once I apply the simple pieces of this program. But that doesn't make it easy. You know, one of the things that's really been the hardest for me with working this program is that it's a very simple concept, very simple program, cleanly laid out, but it's not easy because it goes against all of my nature. It goes against the way that I'm wired. And so that's really something that I've been so grateful to have had the ability to have a program and the access to a program that gives me the power that I need to have a balanced and centered life. It's not a theory, it's a promise. You know, but I can't get there by applying more self to a disease of self. Some of you guys have heard of that concept. One of the things I love about the 12 steps is that no matter how the disease comes out in my life, whether it's being powerless over people or powerless over other things, it all comes back down to the disease of self. And so today we're going to be really talking about what are the things that have helped me and many, many other people get freedom from this idea of self, while at the same time being true to self. So it's a really powerful thing, and it's a paradox in some ways. But I'm going to back up a little bit and start off a little bit on who I am, my story, and whatnot, and how did I get to CoDA. So for me, you know, having been around the 12 steps for a little while, I knew that it was something that could help me, but I didn't think it was something that I really needed. I thought that CoDA was something that kind of other people did. It wasn't something that I needed to really look at because, quite frankly, I thought that I had all that stuff down packed, right? I didn't think of myself as codependent. lot of people that I've met over the years have a misconception that codependency is about my relationship with my wife or my relationship with, a significant other or spouse, a partner, or someone that you're dating. And the truth is, it goes a lot deeper than that. And many of us know that today. But what got me here is the same thing got a lot of people into this program, and that is a divorce. And so I got divorced back in 2017, and it was one of those traumatic experiences for me, especially because I come from a background where divorce is, very forbidden, looked down on, not God's will. So there was a lot of shame for me around divorce, but that's not where the shame started. That's just when I realized that I had shame. I didn't realize until that moment 4 years ago how long I had lived in this life of not being enough and feeling like I was never adding up. And not that I really woke up every day and looked in the mirror and said that I'm not enough, but more importantly, I had it in the background. One of the biggest parts of my story and the most powerful things about what it is that CoDA has helped me do is to stop living what I would call an unconscious life. So much of my shame was in my subconscious. As a child, I grew up in a great family. So my story is not unlike some, but unlike many others in that, I didn't deal with as much abuse in the household as many of my friends and sponsees and sponsors have. But the fact is that shame found me nonetheless. And so when I was 6 years old, my family and I moved from Lafayette, Louisiana, which is where I'm back at now. And we moved to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania for my parents. They decided to get into nonprofit work, helping homeless people and underprivileged children get help and find shelter and recover. And so I've been around this concept of helping others for a very long time. And I loved the work we did. As a child, I was someone who I always thought of as kind of weird. And what that looked like for me is I always had a laboratory. Even from the age of 5, I was always inventing things, most of which did not work too well because I wasn't an engineer. I'm still working on the hoverboard and the time machine. So maybe by next year's conference, I'll have that worked out. But I was always fearless with those types of things. But I was also very isolated in that. So it wasn't until later on in life that I realized how much I was kind of just caring for myself because I had siblings and there was a lot going on and I was okay with that. But in hindsight, that has actually affected me in different ways as I've grown up. So, fast forward a little bit for me, I got out of high school, and one of the biggest things that happened was that the nonprofit organization that my parents had started was taken away from them. And so I had a very, very bad taste in my mouth for helping others. And I really didn't see how it was going to make sense for me. I felt like I was either going to have to do something full time, and it was super extreme. And, I kind of gave up on the concept of helping others and just did what most people do when they don't want to be poor, and that's go to work and try to make money. And I did that for a long time. I made work really almost like an addiction, if you will, and was a workaholic for a long time, trying to use work to, and before work, I was actually, a musician in a band. So I tried to become famous with a band. Then it was work and tried to become successful in work. But I was always still trying to prove to other people what it is that who I was and that I was enough and whatnot. And so that one of the things that happened for me, because I come from a more religious background, I got married very, very young. So, right after high school, got married. And not to say anything negative about that, but it can be very difficult when you get to 35 years old, 37 years old, and you are a completely different adult, and trying to reconcile those two can be difficult. And that's what happened for me. Basically, I got to a place where I had the illusion of balance. So, like I said, in 2008 was my first introduction to the 12 steps. I basically lost my first company. That all went to hell. My first wife had left me, and I really had nothing left to show for it. So I realized, okay, I've got to do something different here. And that was really the first time I tried to apply the 12 steps to my life. But even with that, I hadn't really done the work to look at, why do I feel the way that I feel? Why do I do the things that I do? Why do I have the compulsions? Why do I have the obsessions that I have? And what I realized was that in a way, I was trying to create my own balance. So this was, again, me trying to apply self to fix myself. And, when I'm just really controlling everything. So what that looked like for me is that I was always trying to people please. So my number one codependent qualifying characteristic is people pleasing. I learned early on that if I could get people to make me feel the way I need to feel based on their emotions through people pleasing, then I would be okay. And it was never clear to me, like I'm saying it to you now. It was something that I had to really uncover, or later on in life. But the truth is that I couldn't really live and okay in my own skin and okay with just my feelings. I needed you and the people around me to feel a certain way about me in order for me to be okay. And that was one of the main things that made me realize that, like, I am 100% codependent. Today, I'm grateful for that. I'm a grateful codependent because it gave me the desperation to start this journey, to start being a part of the CoDA community, the Codependence Anonymous community. And it's been such a powerful journey. One of the things that happened for me was that I was constantly, before CoDA, creating what I would call too many boundaries. Now, I didn't call it boundaries, but what it was basically compartmentalization. So what I did was I tried to just control situations. So at home, I was one way. At work, I was another way. In the program, I was a third way, maybe. And so there, at any given time, there might have been 7 or 8 different versions of Frankie. And so a lot of the work has been to break that down. And I didn't even realize this was going on until 2017, when I was faced with the divorce and faced with the reality that I had been in a massive, massive amount of denial for a very, very long time. And it was painful. As many of us know, going through this journey can be very, very painful. So for me, I was going through a divorce at the same time as trying to really find myself. And also I was in a beautiful new relationship at the same time. So there was a lot of things that made it very, very difficult for me coming into this program, but it was a catalyst to really, really start to, for the first time, get absolutely honest with myself. And every day since then has been a journey of getting honest. And getting honest is a huge part of the solution for me today. The two things I can say that I've taken away from being in the 12 steps for all these years is humility and honesty. And those are two things that I absolutely cannot get on my own. I have zero ways of knowing how to achieve either of those two things. But by going through this process and by working these steps, it's allowed me to begin to see honesty as really my true north. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But, one thing that I had to ask myself is why is it so hard to do what I call living wholeheartedly? And so I wanted to live wholeheartedly. And what I mean by wholehearted is that, like, all of me, all of my different personalities that show up in these different settings so that you can feel a certain way about me so that I can be okay, bringing all that together and being okay with one version of me, one Frankie that's wholehearted. And the truth is that it took me going all the way back to my inner child to be okay with that. And I did a lot of work, went to many different codependent type retreats. I did hundreds of hours of therapy with multiple therapists, worked the steps with a sponsor. And during that journey, I was able to uncover some patterns in my life that have been a series of me denying who I am at the core and who I am in my inner child, and running from accepting that guy, right? So for me, my inner child is 5 or 6 years old, Frankie. He's going to be an astronaut. He's a cowboy. He's an inventor, and maybe he's a TV preacher. I don't know. But some version of that is what I realized was my inner child. And as I went through this journey, I began to become more and more okay with that. And what it looked like for me was basically every day trying to be okay with what it is that I need to do to stay in that space. All right. And so, one second, guys. All right. So the biggest thing is that I really wanted to have the ability to be one person. And so what I had to do was I had to continually remind myself who that person is and continually challenge myself to be okay with stepping into that on an everyday level. So what that meant for me practically is not hiding who I am and being okay with this concept of being a little weird. In fact, I'm working on a story right now that I plan to write that's called Love the Weird. And the whole idea is about loving that weird part of myself that all of us have, that for whatever reason, like for me, I got bullied starting in first grade, and I was labeled as odd and weird. Most people wanted to be outside playing throughout my childhood, and I wanted to be inside inventing these things. So early on in my childhood, I had this idea that like there was maybe something a little wrong with me, even though my mom, bless her heart, did everything she could to always tell me that I could be whatever I wanted to be, and that whatever I was, it was perfect. And so I had those types of messages coming from inside my family, which is, I'm grateful for that. But that's also what kept me for a long time thinking, well, I'm not really codependent. Maybe I'm not really as bad as some of these other people that have gone through worse traumas than I have. But that even in and of itself was a form of pride for me, of saying that like somehow like my story is either too good or not good enough. And a large part of my journey has been really coming to a place where I don't really have to worry about if I'm too good or too bad. I can just be in the middle. And that's been a journey for me, is, not having to be the top of the heap or the bottom of the heap. I can just be in the middle, and that's okay. And that's really helped me a lot. So living wholeheartedly versus trying to compartmentalize what's going on has been a really, really big part of my journey. So going forward to this next concept, I call it subconscious chaos. So one of the things that I've had to really focus on during these last 4 years, especially now that I've been basically woken up to what it looks like to live wholeheartedly, to live in an honest with myself and honest with other people space, I've got to continually check in with myself. This is something that I've got to do daily. And that starts in the morning, right? So one of the things that I do that's part of my Freedom Acts. So there's 5 Freedom Acts that we're going to be talking about here in a minute, that have helped me stay out of self-will and ultimately in God's will. Okay. So this idea of checking in with myself has become imperative. Also staying honest with myself. Like if I find that I'm feeling a certain way about a situation, it's usually because I need to look at, am I being honest with myself? And in turn, am I being honest with others? But all of these ways are how I can stay out of this subconscious chaos. And what I mean by subconscious chaos is that many times I can just go throughout the day really asking the questions, what, when, where, how, and all the questions I've got to ask to survive. But I don't many times ask the question that I don't have to ask in order to survive, but I do have to ask it if I want to grow. And that is why. Why do I feel this way? Why is this happening? Why is this turning out the way it is? And when I am willing to every day ask myself why, that allows for me to check back in and stay out of denial. Because denial is what led me to multiple bottoms in my life that were very, very difficult. And they're bottoms that I don't want to repeat. But they're also bottoms that I didn't plan for. These are bottoms that I didn't see coming and that I won't see coming again unless I practice these principles in all of my affairs and unless I continue to apply these components. So this is what the story looks like today. I would be remiss not to show this part. This is my beautiful family. So the nice thing is the pictures are 1,000 words, but there's a million other words that these pictures don't say.
Okay. I don't want you to do
what's that?
Please let me help you. It scares the hell out of me. I'm much more feeling safe, important than
Hello. You got to put it on
But
mute.
instead, you insist on
I just muted all of Frankie, so if you want to unmute yourself.
Very good. Wow, that got crazy. I was like,
Sorry.
okay, so I was like, okay, I clearly went off the deep end here and like was making someone feel very unsafe, but I'm pretty sure they're talking to their qualifier. I could be wrong, but I actually think I recognize that voice. But anyway, so look, so this is why I wanted to show this for two reasons. One, I have been blessed with a wonderful family today. But what's not shown in this picture is a lot of the difficult things that my wife and I, who are both in CoDA, she just celebrated her 4-year medallion. We have had to go through quite a lot, right? So it's both of our second marriages. This is a blended family. We have one little baby together. So we have the yours, ours, and mine. And it's the most beautiful mess that you could ever imagine. And I'm so grateful to have gone through the journey I have because it has given me so much in this, but it's all been from hard work, even from the standpoint of conflict. So growing up, there was conflict at different times, fighting about money and things like that. So I kind of grew up with wanting to avoid conflict at all possible. So I got into a lot of trouble avoiding conflict, thinking that if I don't fight about it, if we don't talk about it, if we don't bring it up, then it's okay. Everything's just fine. And quite frankly, that was what ruined a lot of relationships in my life. Today, I, have healthy conflict with my wife. Not always healthy, sometimes unhealthy conflict, but nonetheless, we always have conflict. And that's the only way to have a real relationship. It's got to be healthy and we have to keep coming back together. And I'm blessed to have another partner who works the program. So they, also have the steps to be able to go to and a solution, but ultimately the amends process that we both now have with ourselves, each other, and our children. So that part has been such a beautiful part of the journey. And so I wanted to just share a little bit about my story before we kind of get into the workshop piece. Before I get into this next part, just wanted to pause for a second. Is there any questions, Shafe, that came up that I can address before we go to the next part?
There's nothing in the chat.
Nice. Okay. Speechless. Is that what I should assume?
But
either speechless or asleep.
This is an incredible talk. Thank you so much.
There's some hands up. There's some hands up.
Okay. All right, go for it.
Yvette,
you want to help them with it?
Sure. Yvette's first.
Hey, Yvette, how are you?
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much for your presentation. I am getting so much out of it. And I wondered, let me just say it, ask the question. I wondered whether or not you have done some inner child work. And if you have, can you just kind of talk about that a little bit and maybe recommend some books, or I don't know how you want to respond, but I'm interested in inner child work. Thank you.
Oh, I love that. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for that question, Yvette. And so the inner child work that I've done a couple different things. So one thing that's not directly related to CoDA, but they're a big fan of CoDA. I went to a group called Onsite that has helped me tremendously. I've been there 3 times. They're based out of Nashville, but they have different things. And a lot of it is about the inner child work. And so the work I've done is mostly experiential therapy. And so there's been a lot of different exercises that kind of help me uncover it. But the best thing I've done is some different tools like going back and really trying to remember as far back as I can to my earliest memory is before a lot of the trauma and the pain came into my life, or different types of like negative things where I began to change to suit other people. Like that's early on as a child. I don't know that I'm supposed to change. I don't know if I'm supposed to be different for other people. But as I get these traumas and these wounds, then that's when I start to change, and I don't even realize it's happening. So one thing I did that was really great is the letter that I wrote to my inner child, and then I've also written letters as the 6-year-old Frankie to the adult Frankie, and I've mailed them to myself. So that was one exercise that was really powerful. Another thing that I've done is just gone back and looked at like what was I into when I was younger. And a lot of people don't have memories too far back, maybe because of trauma. but I go back as far as I can. And if I can't remember back, I've met people that can't remember back too early in their life. It's like, well, what would you like to tell that little girl or that little boy that you weren't told? And so those are the things that I try to do differently. So in a day-to-day basis, it's like, am I showing up as my adult self and taking into consideration my inner child? And also, like, then what happens is with my spouse, am I considering hers when I'm talking to her? Because a lot of times when I'm upset or I'm angry or I've got these things that are confusing about my emotions, which drives so much of my actions, there's something deeper there. And if we're both willing to check in, but most importantly, me being willing to check in with what is it that is basically offensive to my inner child that could be part of what I don't understand or what's offensive to me as an adult. So there's a lot of great stuff out there. On-site was great for me. There's a lot of great therapists that if you ask around and look for people that are specialized in the inner child work, that's going to be a big deal. But the beginning work, you can start today, you know. I hope that helps.
Thank you so much.
Someone else raised their hand.
Hi.
I think it's Julie.
Yeah, it's Julie. I just wanted to mention that group you mentioned, someone was asking for the name, but I suggested that they speak with you personally because I'm not sure that we're supposed to be mentioning names. You know?
Yes, that may be an outside issue, and I apologize for that.
That's okay. That's okay.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. Reach out to me separately or to the chair people. That's fine. Yeah. So
Julie B has her hand up next.
Okay, go ahead, Julie.
Well, hello. Thank you, CoDA brother Frankie, for this wonderful workshop. And I want to say one thing. My family of origin is was born right down the street.
Okay.
Plaisance, Louisiana, Opelousas.
I think through it.
Yeah.
And I've been in CoDA for 21 years, and there were no CoDA meetings down there. I mean, when I would go visit, I come down there. So I'm just so happy that CoDA is alive and well in southern Louisiana. Let the good times roll. And
le bâton roulé.
Absolutely. And the battle of the wills, I'm so, for me, it's self-will versus God's will. So I'm so grateful that you're breaking it down. And I also wanted to let everybody know that there is a inner child workshop in CoDA coming up, hosted by the Phoenix CoDA group on their website. So there's going to be an inner child workshop for CoDA coming up, I think, either next week or in a couple weeks. CoDAAZ.org, I think. I can put the link in the chat. Thank you. I pass.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. Maybe one more if there's any hands raised, or I'll keep moving.
No hands.
We have no hands. Okay, good. Oh,
hands.
Okay, gotcha. All right. So I'm going to
there is something in the chat. How do you work via healthy conflict? What are the tools?
Healthy conflict. Okay, great. So the main thing with healthy conflict is slow the F down. The main thing for me is to slow down, pause when I am emotional about it. If I'm not emotional about it, but the other person is, then one of us is going to wait until we kind of calm down. The most important thing about healthy conflict is to not brush it under the rug. So if it's there and it's honest, it needs to be talked about. Now, there are times when I have to designate times with my wife. So for my wife and I, we're in a great place in our relationship right now, and we still will have a session of 2 hours a week with a therapist because we do have 6 kids and businesses and things like that. So we have a lot of life going on, and I'm 40, she's 35. So there's a lot of activity, right? So there's so many opportunities for conflict with our life. And so, it's important for us to basically not just brush our conflict or what's bothering us under the rug, but to continually come back to it. If it can't happen in that very moment, we come back to it very soon after. And the idea is that it's honest, but in a loving way. So, that's really what we focus on. And if I'm not in a relationship with someone who's willing to also be honest, well, then I have to approach that differently, right? So I've been in relationships where the person was honest. I've been in relationships where the person wasn't honest. I've been in relationships where I wasn't honest. Honesty becomes the really big thing here. So I'm going to kind of keep moving a little bit here and talk a little bit about honesty, because one thing that helped me coming into this program was that I had this idea that, like, I had a concept of right and wrong that I think I thought I had kind of nailed down. And when everything kind of went to shit in my life, if you will, I had to really regroup on, like, what is right and wrong. And it's so subjective, so I say to a lot of people that, right and wrong is subjective. And an extreme example would be like with the Twin Towers in New York. Most people believe that it's wrong to fly 2 planes into the Twin Towers in New York. I absolutely believe that is wrong. Now, there's people in this world that think it's right. In fact, they believe God told them to do it. And so the question becomes, who's right? Okay, who's right, who's wrong? So what I do today is I try to stay away from this concept of right and wrong and make everything in my life north for honesty. That's my north. Because the fact is, there were millions of lies that had to be told in order to fly those planes into the Twin Towers. And so I use that example because that's how it's helped me get out of this idea of, like, trying to be the judge of what's right and wrong, and getting more about, like, okay, am I being honest with myself by doing this? And more importantly, do I have to lie to you or leave something out in order to do something? And so for me, there's my next right decision is basically, do I have to lie to myself? Do I have to lie to you, or do I have to lie to both for that? So that's a big thing that I always like to talk about, because being true to myself and being true to others go hand in hand. Honesty is something that is not easy. It's difficult. There's not a lot of room for people pleasing when I'm honest, but, like, these are the tools that have helped me stay out of this people pleasing and stay out of this denial on a regular basis. So one of the things that I have a couple of members from our Living Center group here in Louisiana that are going to share on a couple of these. And I think Rafe is going to be our first one. Rafe, if you want to unmute, I'd love to hear kind of your experience with being true to yourself and how honesty versus trying to get into the debate of right and wrong has helped you.
Yeah, thanks, Frankie. Thank y'all so much for the platform. To our own selfie truth. So I didn't even know who my own self was coming in, really, from watching TV at such a young age, listening to what my parents thought, friends thought, basically everything in the outside world and inside my home. I was confused on that. So when I started to really deep dive into why I was thinking these things, it came down to people pleasing. So if I was people pleasing everyone else, I wasn't being true to myself. So when I stepped back and I actually looked deeper, and like Frankie was talking about, go to my inner child. My inner child liked Star Wars, wanted to be a race car driver, wanted to drive the Millennium Falcon. And I look into that, and I truly, when I start being honest about myself, I can be honest towards others. And once I'm honest towards others, I'm being loving. And then that's when I can be vulnerable. When I'm vulnerable, then I can be loved, and I'm loving, and then I can love thyself. Instead of what someone else thinks or what my parents have thought, what I think, it matters. Now, I don't have to speak it all the time, but I can also just sit in there and be like, this is what I think, and that's okay. I don't have to share that opinion necessarily, but I know that this is what I think, and that's okay, without having someone else to change my mind for me. And thank God, because I can also, for so long I was lying. I lied for so long that I'm retraining my brain. And that's what's great about a sponsor. I can see that deep down, maybe I am lying, or maybe I'm holding something back, so I'm not telling the entire truth, which is a lie. And I didn't know that. It's funny, but that's how, messed up my thought was, my thinking is. So there's a great thing about going into a group and being completely vulnerable and feeling that love. And then also because I'm being honest and I'm showing what I am truly, and then bringing it from that room and then from the room to the outside world, because that's the real test. I mean, I can come into a room and say some really good things, but when I'm putting it in all my affairs outside, it's really helped me become a better person and respect it in a fair way, not like, oh, this or that. It's right in the middle. Like, this guy can be honest, but at times, especially the early beginning, I didn't know how to be honest, and I could go back into those old ways very quickly if I start completely listening to what my thinking told me. But now I change my thoughts with actions, and I act myself into different thinking, and that's helped me out so much. And Frankie and the group that I'm part of is a humongous part of that. And something that, if I'm putting in honesty and I'm giving it out, that's what I'll usually get in return. So whatever I put into myself, I can get out, and not all the times, and that's okay. But at the end of the day, if I'm doing that thing and no one else is, that's okay. I can sleep at night. I can lay in my head and I don't have all these crazy thoughts. Something a good friend of mine shared with me, and then I'll stop. You're holding a cup of coffee when someone comes along and bumps into you or shakes your arm, making you spill your coffee everywhere. Why did you spill the coffee? Well, because someone bumped into me, of course. That's the wrong answer. You spilled the coffee because there was coffee in your cup. Had there been tea in your cup, you would have spilled tea. Whatever's inside the cup is what you'll spill out. Therefore, when life comes along and shakes you, which will happen, whatever's inside you will come out. It's easy to fake it until you get rattled. So what we have to ask ourselves is, what's in my cup? When life gets tough, what spills over? Joy, gratefulness, peace, and humility, or anger, bitterness, harsh words, and reactions? And that's really up to me to choose. And, that's honestly something I like to start out in the daily is prayer, meditation. Get my
You muted all of a sudden.
Well, where'd I leave off at?
We lost you at prayer and meditation.
Yes. So yeah, the prayer and meditation really makes me start my day from the beginning and look at where I could be help to others and get out of my self-will. Because honestly, when I'm steering, it doesn't go right. It really doesn't, because then I'm trying to control every single thing and I'm mapping out how I want everything to go. And honestly, every time I've done that, 9 times out of 10, it didn't work out. And that 1 time out of 10, it looked like it worked out right then, but later down the line, it didn't work out because I was self-seeking at the end of the day. But that's what's great about prayer and meditation. Honestly, talking to someone else about my things as well, venting, but also hearing feedback and I have an open mind about listening what they have to say instead of just me talking all the time.
All right. Thanks, Rafe. So, one of the things that is, he was just talking about with the tea and the coffee is that, whenever we have a situation or I have a situation where I am dealing with figuring out what is God's will, I think of it in a similar way. Is that like, what's going to spill over? What's going to fill that void? And I've heard it a couple different ways, but basically the way it was taught to me and has proven to be a very, very powerful truth in my life is this idea that there's 2 wills in the universe: God's will, self-will. And that has helped me tremendously, because growing up with purpose in my life and growing up with knowing that like helping others is important, I was constantly trying to figure out, what is God's will for my life? That question just kept coming. And I really grabbed for a lot of right and wrong concepts to figure out if I was in God's will. And today it's become so much simpler. Thanks to this program, because now I don't have to worry about how to get into God's will, because I already know that God's will for me is to work the CoDA 12 steps and to work the CoDA program. And also that if there's 2 wills in the universe, if I get out of self-will, then I'm going to inevitably be in God's will. So the main thing that has changed my life and brought me the freedom and joy and happiness and serenity that I so deeply need to be in this world and be able to stand it, that has come from me consistently seeing the importance of getting out of self-will. And so that has been such a powerful thing. And the good news is that I now have a super clear path, thanks to CoDA and the 12 steps of Codependence Anonymous. I've got the ability to consistently get out of self-will and get into God's will. So the 5 things that we're about to cover are literally, they're basic. Most of the people in this conference practice most of these, if not all of these, every day. But what I've found is that it doesn't change the fact that simple message, the simple parts of this program, no matter how long I've been in it, are still the most important components, no matter what I know and what I've learned from this program. So I've been studying and living and experiencing this program for almost 14 years. And the fact is, it's amazing and it's awesome. And I know a bunch of stuff and I believe a bunch of stuff. But the fact is, if I don't do anything today, all of that stuff is irrelevant. no matter, it doesn't matter what I believe, doesn't matter what I think. All that matters is what I do, you know? So what I want to do is, Grant from our group was going to share a little bit about his experience with getting out of self-will and getting into God's will.
Good afternoon. First of all, I'm grateful to be here and to be a part of this experience. I think on a very plain level, being here this afternoon and instead of doing what I would probably have planned for myself is getting out of my will and being in God's will. So I'm very grateful for that. Briefly about my story, I sort of felt always exceptional in the fact that I was the kid that cared more. I wanted to see a difference in people. I wanted to have the perfect relationships with people. My emotions seemed to be extra sensitive. Where that led me in my will through my life was at a place where I felt very isolated and lonely, in a lot of codependent relationships, emotionally messy. I could feel other people's feelings, but I couldn't tell you what I was going through or why. I got into a place where I wasn't loving myself very well, taking very good self-care steps for my betterment. And life got really, really lonely and scary. Depression could be part of my story, anxiety, and working other 12 steps as well. Through this program, however, doing God's will is something completely different and novel for me. I had a struggle with the God's will versus my will because in my brain, I could always convince myself in one degree or another that my will sort of coincided with what God's will was. And when I figure it out on my own, I find that I end up hitting sort of a dead end. So part of me, my journey had to be honest with myself and where I was at and the fact that I was unhappy. My relationships were unsatisfying. Commitments were hard to keep. I wasn't a man of my word or had integrity. And there was a bit of cognitive dissonance there because I believed and saw what I saw in my heart, some goodness and wanting everybody to be happy and fulfilled and full of joy and love and peace for us to be able to open and connect. But my behaviors and the way that I was showing up was very isolated, very skittish, very afraid. And when I had to look at that, it wasn't everybody else. It was something within me. So part of the honesty of looking at myself and working God's will was being able to commit to a program. And this program for me has done wonders. If I'm not sure with my brain what my will is, now I have a sponsor that I talk to daily. More importantly, I was given some advice that you should have a board of trustees. Most successful people go to other people who are just as successful, if not more successful or better at certain things than them, and then they can go to them for answers that they can trust. Finding people who I wouldn't take criticism from unless you take advice from them. So if somebody wants to try to bring me down, I don't have to absorb that necessarily. If there's somebody who I would seek for advice, that's the type of people that I would like to surround myself with. And that's something I've been able to do in this program. Many of the people who are speaking today are people who I'm grateful are in my network now that I can look them in the eyes and get some feedback so that I can see myself. And if I'm existing in my will because it's something I've convinced myself of, or if I'm existing in God's will. Prayer and meditation is key for me. Oftentimes when I get busier, I think I'm acting in the solution. And what I'm doing is inserting my will into solutions instead of God's will. So what I've found is sometimes when I'm most at peace and most effective and most present for people is in the moment. And part of that is recognizing where God put me and accepting that. Not me inserting myself on the people I want influence with, not me inserting myself on the family that I want relationships with, but who does God put in my life and am I being present for those people? I've also found in this program, not doing the comfortable thing that has immediate comfort, but instead doing things that build my character, that are in agreement with my principles, that has a long-term payoff. I can hold my head high. I can look people in the eye. When I say I'm going to do something, I can do it versus constantly taking the comfortable route that feels good, that I've convinced myself is the right thing. Being of service and getting outside of myself, a lot of times, my will wants me to do things that are comfortable for me and easy and what I've done in the past. So as Frankie said earlier, to rewire that thinking, years and years of that thinking, a lot of times just comes down to action, getting out of myself, talking to somebody else about their problems, listening, being present, and taking a step back from that. So today, my relationships have gotten so much better. And I think part of that is my externals didn't change as much as my internal condition changed through this program, through listening, through humbling myself, through being honest with myself. In doing so, naturally, the healthier relationships have made room in my life, and the unhealthier relationships have started to move to the outskirts. And I'm very grateful for where I'm at today. I'm grateful for this program. I'm grateful that there's a whole group of people meeting together through Zoom for a common solution, for a connection, for a spiritual condition. And I'm grateful to be part of it. Thank you. My name is Grant. I'm codependent.
All right. Thanks, Grant. The thing that has been really beautiful for me is that as I've, come from a background of feeling like not enough or having shame or things like that, it can sometimes seem like a negative thing to identify as like a codependent or having this disease, right? I love that they put it that way, but obviously, like, who wants to have a disease? But today I've seen that disease as something that has been the most important thing that I ever got, if you will, or ever caught. I don't know if you can even catch this thing, but the fact is that disease is really just a road to lead me to understanding how I'm wired and how many of us are wired. And that is that I am wired in a way to be dependent, right? Codependent is when I don't seek to be God dependent, okay, which for many of us coming into this, it means a lot of different things. So being God dependent has a lot of odd connotations because, like, maybe I don't believe in God. Maybe God is actually just representative of somebody from a church that, abused me. There's a lot of negative things about God. So, I get into this program and all of a sudden they start talking about God. It's like, oh, goodness. And so, but what I've come to realize is that my dependence that I keep going to others to fill and things to fill, and what I'm unnaturally trying to get out of these others people in my life, it's unnatural. But when I turn that dependence and take that same hole I'm trying to fill with others by controlling them or by manipulating them or by overly needing them in my life to fill something that is by design, there's a hole there, right? And so that's where the God dependency has become so powerful. And that's what the codependent steps have done for me, is allowed for me to become more and more God dependent every day and less codependent, which is such a beautiful thing because it allows for me to be more and more of what I would call my authentic self. Being authentic, being honest, all of these things are not possible if I'm using my energy and using myself to try to get everyone else to feel a certain way or to do a certain thing or to control others. I don't have room to be my authentic self because I'm too busy doing these other things. So the God dependency has been such a powerful thing. And what the program has done for me is make that practical. It's one thing to believe in God, and it's a great idea to believe in God or believe in religions and all these things out there. But the fact is until I got to the 12 steps of CoDA, I wasn't able to practically be God dependent. That's why this is so powerful, because it gives me something that I can do to be God dependent, as opposed to just sitting around and talking about it or thinking about it or believing in it. I'm actually taking action that creates a daily God dependency. So Donna was going to share a little bit about her experience with her journey and being God dependent. Hi, Donna.
Hey, I'm Donna. I'm codependent. I'm super glad to be here and be part of this group in general in Lafayette and this workshop. But, growing up, I always thought I knew what being dependent on God was. I thought I knew how to have a relationship with God or a higher power. And I was taught, a certain list of rules and actions. And I thought I was doing all of those things. And then in life, someone to me about codependency. And of course I was like, well, that's definitely not me. Right. Deny. It was total denial. And so then I stopped for a second, after thinking, okay, well, some of these common characteristics about codependency, like maybe I am codependent. Let's really visit this and unpack this. And so I did look into the definition of what it means to be a codependent. And believe it or not, it's actually likened to relationship addiction. And so for me, I started really thinking about what that meant for me in my life and relationship addiction, or being addicted to different relationships. And as I'm looking at that and really looking at the different characteristics of a codependent personality, I'm seeing, okay, well, all these things are checking off. I am people pleasing. I am looking for validation in relationships. I'm looking for approval from other people and trying to get this feeling of I am enough from other people. And so in doing that, I started to notice, my dependence, or that codependence, which I definitely am, that codependence, when I put all this dependence on other people, if those people in that circle that I've established for myself starts to break in any way, then I shatter. If the people that I'm putting my dependence in become sick, then I become sicker. And as that was happening, and as my circle became kind of, I guess, infected with just, life or, problems in general, I'm looking for approval or to be whole out of what I can't be whole from, that can't fill my cup. And so, obviously I realized I had a problem that it needed to be fixed. And so coming to CoDA has been so rewarding, because you get this format, this rule book, this way to heal and to learn how to really put your dependence in the place where it should be. Right. And so, I didn't really know how to be God dependent, not in the right ways. I didn't know how to do anything but to ask God for fixing what I'd already messed up. Right. So until I was able to really go back and look at how to piece that together, and how to listen to God, and really look at this one rule book where I didn't need other people's approval. I just needed to know that I was doing the right thing, and that I was doing the godly thing, or doing what I thought would be the next right thing. My world couldn't be whole. I couldn't have something to fill me up because I didn't have consistency. What I learned is, my higher power is present. It's ever present. It's ever consistent. It's always going to be there to fill me up. And so once I started doing that, the changes in my life have been profound, and in a way that I can't even explain, because I didn't, people can't fill me up the way God can. I can always become more whole that way. So for me, just coming to CoDA and really learning that has been really amazing, and to be able to put my dependence back where it should be in the first place, and the way I guess I was built as a human. I'm going to leave you with this really cool quote. I am not separate from God. I am not an outsider knocking on the door, clinging in fear, waiting to be let in. I can take God's hand and be co-creator, allowing God to take the lead. And that to me is what I'm learning in CoDA. Thank you. I'm Donna, codependent.
Thank you, Donna. So, one of the things that we promised today is that we would actually talk about 5 things that are practical ways to get out of self-will and get the freedom of being in God's will, and the beautiful part of being in that sunlight of God's will. And this is something that, again, is very practical. But the first one might seem obvious to everyone. But it is so critical, because I've seen so many people get the tools of the 12 steps and get healing, get better, and then turn around and just kind of do it on their own. So any which way I start doing this on my own or outside of the CoDA component, for me, it's been self-will. So that's why I have to always, no matter how long I'm in this, continue to be a part of the meetings. The CoDA meetings are so incredibly important. And it took me a while to get this, because I went through a season where I was going to meetings very sporadically, right? Maybe I was busy or I was just thought I was better. That's what this disease does for us with codependency. It convinces me that I'm better. But it wasn't until I really started to study the traditions and believe in the traditions, when I understood that the primary purpose of these meetings is to carry the message to people that are still suffering from codependency, which, quite frankly, is a lot of people that are in the rooms, including myself, if I'm not working this program. So it's so important for me to continue to go to meetings. That connection, that fellowship, that piece of what happens, the power that happens when we come together as a group in a meeting like we're doing today, there's so much power that I believe was designed by God to be powerful for us, because there's whatever we believe God is, or a higher power is, it usually it's something that, if I can see it, like nature and the universe, that's one thing. But if it's an invisible God, either way, it's somewhat distant and vague. God becomes real when we come together, right? A lot of people call each other, in the program, it's like God with skin. And I really get that, because at the end of the day, I believe it was designed for us to really need each other coming together. In order for me to connect with myself and with God, I need to be able to connect with you guys. And that's why, like, number one way that I have freedom from self-will is by going and participating in meetings. So Justin is actually going to share his experience. Justin just started CoDA this year and is really excited. He's one of our younger members. So Justin, tell us about, your experience with the meetings and how that's been a powerful way to get out of self-will.
Yeah, thank you, Frankie. My name is Justin, codependent from Louisiana, 23 years old. So self-will, going and participating in meetings. It's one thing to go in a room and it's a safe spot and you can share and invent, but it's another thing to be on here. We got all these people watching, and to come out and be vulnerable and really take the curtains down and put everything out there. It's a powerful thing. That's what it's all about, passing the message on and helping other people get this freedom. So the meetings, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I'm nothing special, man. I'm a trashy white boy from Louisiana. I grew up in a family where, hey, we all hung out in bars, we fought, grew up around drugs, this and that, like everybody else. And I grew up thinking, like, man, something's not right about this. I couldn't put my finger on it. I didn't know what it was, but something wasn't right. I didn't like the way people were living around me, and I knew we had to do something different. So the way I found these CoDA meetings, I was in a relationship for 2 years, and it was a toxic one, obviously. And I knew the term codependent, and I did my own research, YouTube, Googling, and whatnot. And I knew it had something to do with me, this codependency thing. So I found this group, I Googled it, I found this group, and I came, and it's really been a beautiful journey for me. I believe I've been here for about 3 months, and my life has just drastically changed in such a big way by doing little things, just making different decisions, showing up differently, having support, having group, having the right people in your life, and taking the toxic ones out, And these groups have really, really changed my life, allowed me to be vulnerable, show up my true self, and allowing everybody else to see me the way I want to be seen, the way I see myself and the way I feel like God has put me on this earth to be. And like I said, like it's a really powerful thing. And I really come to know God in a really practical way, and a way that it makes sense. It's like we have these people that we lean on, and it's amazing. It's amazing when you trust in God and trust on these other people to have decisions, But anyway, like I said, like I'm so blessed to be here, so glad to have this group, this newfound freedom. And it's like my life has been better. I feel like I can live life with my foot on the gas. I'm not one foot on the brake, one foot on the gas. It's like I'm starting to be able to take off the gas and really punch life and give it a go, because, man, look, let's just face it. Life is risky and it's scary, and everything about it is a risk. And I'll tell you how risky it is that we're not getting out of this place alive. So you might as well give it a swing. You might as well give it all you got, because death is the scariest thing. And I know y'all can agree with that. So take a step, man, be a man, be a woman, and have some faith, be humble and realize that, hey, we got some issues and we don't know what's going on, For one thing that was big for me that allowed me to get out of my own self-will coming to these groups was understanding my place in the world. There is a God who made me, And I am this. I am small, like I'm just this trashy white boy who like to lift weights, grew up in the cane field, nothing to do, you know what I mean? And I find myself here in this group talking to all these people. It's like, who am I? Why am I so worthy? Why am I not like everybody else? Getting into drugs, falling off, ruining their families. This is what I've seen growing up, toxic relationships. And that is how I've understood God. It's like God's given me opportunities. He's put better people in my life. He's given me a vision. I can see He's painted a picture for me to get out of the rut or this place I was born into. And my whole goal in life is to become better than the generation before me. My parents did a great job. They did the best they could, and they gave me a great platform to start off on. And I want to take what they gave me and go a little bit further, and by helping people, helping others, I can bring the world into a little better place. That's God's work. That's what Jesus came here to do. He came to enlighten the people. He painted a picture for people to see what they couldn't see before with His words. And that's why His words are so powerful. As all words are so powerful. We create reality with what we speak, what we think, and what we choose to think and what we choose to speak. And when you give your life to God and you become humble, you have choice. We have decisions. And that is what this group coming to the meetings has done for me. Like I said, it's been a great experience. I'm 23 years old and I'm so grateful. And before I get off of here, I just want to say one.
Justin, you muted again.
We lost you.
Ended up at save at one.
We're on pins and needles. There was like one more thing you were going to say.
Yeah.
All right. So the last thing I'll leave y'all with is, I've come far in my life and my ego, my head gets big and I think I got it all together. And I pray to God hey, Lord, let me keep myself humble. Give me the wisdom. Let me see what I'm doing so I can keep myself humble. Because if you humble me, if God has to step in and humble you, everybody knows that's not pretty. God doesn't play. When He has to humble you, it hurts. It's painful. You got a lot of emotional things going on and it's bad. So pray, be humble. And that's what I pray every day. Just allow me to keep myself humble so I don't have to be humbled. And like I said, I'm grateful to be here. I hope this story has touched everybody and everybody has a blessed evening and can take something from this. Thank y'all for letting me share. I'm Justin, codependent.
Thanks, Justin. So the second one that, has been like a huge part of getting out of self-will for me that's incredibly practical is this concept of taking direction from someone else, right? So if I'm making a decision on my own, even if I've prayed and meditated about it, many times it's still a decision that's in self-will if I'm not running it by someone else in CoDA, right? Like especially my sponsor, who after I work the steps knows just about everything about me because we've worked all the different inventories and I've been honest with myself and God and my sponsor. So they have such a unique position to be able to help me and they don't really have anything to gain, right? Because I don't, I'm not sponsored by people that gain things from me. And that's one of the beautiful things about that relationship. So sometimes one of the most simple ways for me to know I'm staying out of self-will is just talking to my sponsor before I make a decision. Now, half the time my sponsor tells me something like, well, why don't you just pray about it and sleep on it, or go to a meeting or do some journaling. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, well, look, I just called you. I said, I'm having these issues with my wife or I'm, and you're telling me to journal or pray about it. You're not listening, and of course the sponsor's listening. But the fact is that half the time it just gives me somebody to check my motives with. Am I still people pleasing? Am I still manipulating? Am I being honest? Am I being true to myself in this situation? And if I get in the routine of doing that on a daily basis, it's a huge way for me to stay out of that self-will and humble, especially after going through this program. Some people that have shared today have 20 plus years. And so going through this process and staying in a place where I take direction from my sponsor is huge. And Eric is actually wanting to share a little bit about kind of his experience with that. Hey, Eric.
Hey, can y'all hear me?
We can hear you.
All right. My name's Eric, and I'm a codependent.
Hey, Eric.
Yeah, I've been in the program for a couple months now. And the good thing about making decisions with my sponsor is he first told me I won't have to make a hard decision for a really long time. And when I first came in the program, I was in a relationship, and working the steps with my sponsor, being open, being willing, and taking direction, taking suggestions. I came to realize that it was a pretty toxic relationship, and I just wasn't in a good place in my life. Shortly after that, my father passed away, and I was very codependent on him because I thought I was never good enough. As a son, I never thought I was a good enough person. And having somebody like my sponsor be there, genuinely, not just from my side of the street, but him crossing over to be with me on my side of the street, that was just an amazing thing to go through, an amazing experience for me. For me, it became like a normality of depending on other people, the way they thought of me, and making impulsive bad decisions. But when I call my sponsor, I almost feel like I was a burden at first, but come to realize it was never a dumb question. It was never a stupid conversation. It was never anything that I was bothering him, because he was gaining just as much as I was. I was helping him just as much as he was helping me. But CoDA's really helped me out. It's helped me come a long way. I've broken a lot of bad habits, and I've actually gotten a pretty nice routine now to where, I pray and meditate. I'm working the steps. I'm working other programs, and I'm becoming a better person. I'm not making impulsive decisions anymore. Financial problems, just this freedom with working with my sponsor and actually processing everything and taking a step back and thinking before I impulsively act. That's a huge thing for me, and it's helped me out, and it's helped me come a long way. But that's all I have. Thank you. I'm Eric. I'm a codependent.
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate your vulnerability, and glad you're here. So another thing that is incredibly important for me as I go throughout the day to stay out of self-will is prayer and meditation. And most everyone in this group, I would assume, has done that a couple times if they're even know about this convention. But it's something that I try to never ever downplay the importance of it. When I first got into this program, I was kind of frustrated with prayer. I'd given up on it because I thought of prayer kind of like a genie in the bottle. And so I'd rub the lamp and ask for 3 wishes, or maybe write a list to Santa Claus. And I kept not getting my prayers answered. So I was like, this doesn't work. There's no God. Screw this. I'm not going to pray anymore. So I did that for about 10 years. And then I came to this program, and it was like, okay, pray and meditate. And I was so desperate that I was willing to try anything. So I did. I tried it. And what I found was that, it's a pretty powerful thing. Basically, the prayer became less and less about like me getting things or me asking for stuff and getting it answered, and more about me getting in the right spot. I've always made a joke that, God, when he wakes up in the morning, doesn't probably feel like I feel, if you believe in a God, and it doesn't need pray. He doesn't need prayer in order to get his head straight, but I do. Right. So what I ended up finding out was the prayer and meditation helped me get straight. Help me slow down, the breathing, just simple things. Most of us that get here, a lot of us, not most of us, I'd say a lot of us that I meet at least, are not great at meditation when I get here. I didn't show up to CoDA because I was happy and well adjusted. I showed up to CoDA like a hot mess. So, just learning little things like just breathing in all the good, great things that I'm grateful for, even if that's just to be alive, or that my child isn't sick, or that I have a job, anything I can muster up when I'm even in a bad spot, I'm going to breathe that in. And then I'm going to breathe out all of the fear and anxiety and depression and the difficulties that I'm going through that maybe are my fault, maybe they're not. I don't really know. All I know is I'm irritable or restless or losing my serenity, which just 2 days ago when I was trying to work on the content for this talk, I had to catch myself because I was getting all worked up. And I realized what had happened is that I had been restored to insanity. Instead of being restored to sanity, I started being restored to insanity. And let me tell you how to get restored to insanity, in case you guys are wondering. Don't try this at home. But basically, I get restored to insanity quite simply by having the courage to change the things I can't change. As long as I'm having that courage to try to change the things I can't, and then I set out to do that, you can rest assured that I will be restored to insanity before dinner time. So I've been trying to stay out of that. And sometimes it's quite simply just 10-step work of when I'm wrong, promptly admitted it. Sometimes my wrong is just not trusting this process, not trusting this program, not trusting the power that is greater than me, which is all of you, enough for me to really use that power and let go and, let go, let God, or let whatever your power is. And the fact is that I have to keep doing that, and I'm not the only one in the group that's had a lot of experience with that. Bert is a part of our group, and I was going to let him share for a couple minutes. I know we have about 10 minutes left. So go ahead, Bert.
Good afternoon. Thanks, Frankie, for allowing me to speak on this topic and give you a little bit of my background. And thank you, CoDA, so much. My name is Bert. I'm definitely a codependent. My issues started very early on. From the age of around 5 to 12, I experienced some trauma and grew up in a rough place, continual trauma. Anyway, flash forward. Entering into CoDA, it allowed me to start touching on some things that were deep seated inside of me. I think Frankie was touching on earlier, that inner child. I was able to do some process letters, stepping on some other counseling. On top of, with CoDA, I've been able to gain a real deep sense and understanding of being present, being in the moment, being in the now, not having to react, not having to feel less than. So step 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. I mean, I'm definitely one that I pray and meditate every single day. I must keep a conscious contact with my higher power. Because for so long I was my own higher power, and that totally didn't work for me. It is a miserable existence because I'm truly powerless. But what empowered me and what empowers me daily is, when I wake up in the morning, prayer and meditation. Prayer is a form of meditation for me, and meditation is also a form of prayer. So when I'm fellowshipping with my higher power, I'm not meditating, I'm fellowshipping with him, I'm covering a lot of grounds. I'm just having a quiet, safe space, and I'm establishing my intention for the day. And for me, my intention is to not feel good enough or less than or being judged. I feel these things a lot, daily at times. But then there's also the flip side of whenever I'm doing my meditations, where I feel whole, where I feel like the journey that my higher power is bringing me to is for a purpose. And to me, that's his will for me. It's the will of my higher power is to bring me to a place of peace, joyousness, happiness, and to be able to carry that message to people who are suffering just like me. And meditation is prayer, and daily meditation and prayer are vital in that for me. I mean, set and setting for me. Okay. The setting of my prayers and meditations. I mean, I work on cars for a living right now, and there's a lot of noise and stuff. And I testify to this. I can be meditating while I'm doing that, because I'll start to feel some type of way about some things. Maybe somebody's chattering about something. Maybe my wife we just got in an argument. Maybe somebody at McDonald's didn't serve me properly. I'm always in the back of my head saying, how can I handle this situation? And it always reverts back to meet people where they're at, give grace, and then love will rear its beautiful head up. That's a form of meditation for me, being present, being sound-minded and not reactional. And I'll tell you what, before CoDA, I consider myself, I've said this to some of my people in my inner core group, I was a rabid, out of control, emotional human being. And I'm not perfect. I'm not fixed. I don't think I'll ever be fixed. But I believe the practice of my meditations and my prayers, the relationship that I have with my higher power, my core CoDA group that I get to go and fellowship with these beautiful people, just a regular guy like me, fellowshipping with a bunch of other different people from all different walks of life, and we come together. And, to me, that fellowship, sitting there chopping it up, that's another form of meditation for me. So I'm constantly always focusing on solutions and of how to get through the issues that I face, and I'm sure that we all face on a daily basis. And CoDA is a gigantic part of that process of healing for me. And I'm never going to quit. I want to say it's a great thing that all of you who are here have reached that vector in life that brought you to CoDA, that crossroad, that turning point, because it is definitely working big time here in Louisiana for us in this core group. And I just want to say thank you, Frankie, for the opportunity to share. And I'll tell you one thing, it works if you work it. So be honest, work the program, and give love. Peace.
Thank you, Bert. All right, guys. So we're coming down on time. So I wanted to actually let Tracy from our group share a little bit about this. But, it goes without saying, for me at least, that working the steps of this program is absolutely critical. And one thing that I've seen other people that I have sponsored make the mistake of doing is trying to really drag out this process. So there's no need to rush the steps. However, there's no need to take years to finish them. And I've found that the relief that comes from working these steps is such a gift and such a powerful spiritual awakening that happens as a result of working these steps that I don't personally like to feel pain. And the more I'm in this program, I like to feel pain less and less. And so I have found that by giving into this process and working these steps with a sponsor, that's where a lot of the faith has come from. They talk about this concept of belief versus faith. I think that they're fundamentally different. Belief is just me deciding I'm making a choice that I'm going to come to believe or believe in something, but I don't really know what it is. I'm just desperate enough to try something. So I'll believe it. I'll just make a choice. But faith is something that is personal to me, that I own, that's only mine, based on having done some things, which are steps in this program. And as a result, some things happen that I know point to the power that is greater than me, which is this program, and are the people in this room and the people around the world in CoDA. That is my power greater than myself, that I can say without a shadow of a doubt can and does restore me to sanity and can give me the freedom that are in those 9 step promises. So, I'm going to let Tracy share a little bit about her experience, but for me, it has been just an amazing thing to work these and keep working them. So Tracy, if you want to share, it's a little bit about steps.
Yeah. Hey guys. My name is Tracy and I am a codependent.
Hey, Tracy.
Hi. Okay. So, working the steps. Yes. So, my life is definitely transformed, in pretty much every aspect of my life since I have joined CoDA. Every day I find that, I have a new favorite step. And I say that because every day is something different, right? So right now, the journey I'm on in this very moment is really finding a balance for who I am as in my adult self and honoring my inner child, along with making amends to my inner child for suppressing her for so long. And it's an emotional thing for me, right? And what CoDA has done has just really allowed me to basically, clear the lenses of all the messages that I told myself and that I interpreted, all of these years, all of my 35 years of living, and really really clearing them out and being able to go back to who I was meant to be, and why I was put here, on earth. And that is to, find that freedom. I remember my childhood, and I always felt like I didn't have a really big story. And so it really didn't matter. And so like my feelings were minute. They didn't really matter. Whenever I was introduced to CoDA and to the steps and to my first sponsor, it was the first time in my life someone was like, it doesn't matter what you have to say and what you feel. Everything really matters. I guess that sounds backwards, but it was just the first time someone was like, everything you're about to tell me is going to matter. And I was like, yeah, but it's just, a small feeling. And when I was able to really, work each step and figure out that like my feelings are what make me, right? My feelings are valid, and now how I react to them or what I do with them is my own decision. And one epiphany I had recently was I was watching my 6 children play in our playroom, and I was just standing back in the doorway watching them. And I just, had a new lens watching them. And I was like, man, this must be what my God is like. He's in the doorway watching me in my adult self and all of my adult people around me. And we really don't know what we're doing. Right. And, my kids are like hitting against the wall, coloring, screaming. They're just being like themselves. And it's like messy and so innocent. And, being able to find that innocence again in my adult self and being able to find that vulnerability has been so powerful. And, being able to rely on a community and having tools. I had this tool chest that I was just given, right, when I was born, and the drills and, the screwdrivers and all that. Well, what CoDA has done is given me an additional tool chest that's new and shiny. And every time I work a step, I'm able to put a new tool into that toolbox. I still have the old toolbox. And, if I'm faced with trying to hang up a picture on the wall, let's just say that picture is a relationship, of someone in my very, very close inner circle. And I go and I pick my old drill and I try to put that picture on the wall with my old drill. It's eventually going to fall down. And so whenever I start to feel, like what's happening, I'm using the drill, I have to stop and be like, oh my goodness, I just dipped into my old toolbox. Like, let me go back to my steps. Which one is it? And I always find a new tool in working the steps and working it with my sponsor and my CoDA peers. And it's just really magical how much I've been able to actually find inner peace through this program and really be confident in who I was, when I was a kid, and be able to just rewrite the messages and re-clear out the lens that I myself told myself. No one, people may have played roles and parts in it, but when I can really come to terms that, oh, this message is not something that I even have to believe, and it's something that I made up, I can change it, and I can change everything. And I don't know if that makes any sense at all, but working the steps and working with a sponsor and working it with my peers and just showing up today, and being able to be my inner child and just being okay with being me has been very powerful. So thank you guys for letting me share. My name is Tracy, and I'm a codependent.
Thank you, Tracy. And I know that we are basically out of time, but I'm going to cut just for 1 minute. Florence, you think that'll be okay?
Yeah, I just text them to please not close the room.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Let's wrap this up in style. So we'll do our own prayer at the end if we need. So just real quick, because this is so important. Like there's nothing more beautiful for me in my experience than getting the opportunity to do 12-step work and work with newcomers and still suffering codependence. There's nothing more beautiful. And it's something that has completely changed my life. And it's something that keeps me coming back to CoDA. And it is when all the other things might not be working too good, I can rest assured that almost every time I work this self-will freedom act of working that 12-step, it does something that gives me so much freedom from self. So it's beautiful. It restores me to sanity every time. And the last person from our group that I was going to have share before we wrap it up was Richard, who was kind of a volunteer. How are you, Richard?
Hi, I'm Richard, codependent. Can you hear me?
Hey, Richard. We can hear you.
Yes. So I come from a very broken background, very dysfunctional family. I suffer from abandonment issues. So all throughout my life, that has caused me to have very dysfunctional relationships where my behaviors, anything I was trying to obtain in life always fell apart in disaster. Real quickly, I'll go into the solution, come into CoDA, find these 12 steps, get in with a sponsor. And step 2, I came to believe that a power greater than myself can restore me to sanity. And in step 3, I made a decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understood him. Also over to the care of my sponsor in the 12 steps of this program. And in steps 4 through 9, I decided to live and take some action and take a jump into life, take some chances, a leap of faith in order to have a spiritual awakening to bring me to a better life, a life that I've always dreamed of, but never could obtain because of my brokenness, because of my humanity. Through this, I have gained some strength and some experience. I'm able to do 10, 11, 12 daily. Prayer and meditation is a very big thing, but sometimes I still retreat back into old behaviors and old mindsets. And from that, the only relief I find is 12-step work, intensively working with others in this program by giving them my practical experience in life, my struggles, and just being vulnerable and real with them and able to enjoy their company and true companionship and real lasting long-term relationships through this program. For me, it has entirely changed my life. I wake up with a new sense of freedom and joy, and my days are pleasurable, man. If I did this by myself, I would never enjoy life to the extent that I enjoy it today. Now I don't wake up with dread and fear and worry. I wake up in a peace of mind with serenity and faith, knowing that my God in this program will carry me through to the next part of my life. That is going to be far better than anything I ever dreamed of. Anytime any of y'all get into self and start hurting and having self-defeating behaviors or thoughts and just self-pity mode, I know I go into that a lot. Reach out to somebody, be there for somebody, share in a meeting, go be of service anywhere you can, and just be present with the other person. I find that gives me true joy. I hope that helps somebody. Richard, I'm a codependent.
Thanks, Richard. So yeah, in closing, this is it's been such an honor to be a part of this. And one of the biggest things I had to learn early on that at first I was a little frustrated by was that the steps are not a ladder. I was trying to figure out when graduation day was, or, when are we going to get out of this thing? And I was a little disappointed to find out that this thing is a circle. But today I'm so grateful because, it would be such a tragedy for me to have to keep living life without being able to be renewed daily by these steps that come with all of this. So, we're just so grateful to have the opportunity to share. I honestly didn't know how we were going to fill 80 minutes because it seemed daunting at first, but here we are going over time. So anyway, thank you for letting me present today. My name is Frankie and I'm codependent.
Hey, Frankie, they're asking for your contact down in the chat. That's up to you if you'd like to share it.
Yeah, that's fine. Do you have it or you want me to share it?
If you could share it, that'd be great. And
okay,
I
let's see.
I want to thank you guys so much. This was really awesome.
Oh, you're so welcome.
I hope that you guys all come to Rapid City and give your presentation.
Okay. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Okay, so I guess I'll just put my full, not full name, but I guess Frankie R, and then my cell phone. Is that okay?
Sure, whichever you would like to.
You're like, wait, why are you asking me? Okay, 849.
How about email? Email.
Yeah, I'll do email as well. So Living Centered LA at Gmail. Let me see if I spelled this thing right. And I just sent it to everyone. So I guess some people will see it that don't even know why I'm sending it, but that's okay.
Do you guys have open Zoom CoDA meetings now going on now?
Right now, we haven't gotten to Zoom. We've been big into the in person, but I'll let you know. We've thought about it. One of the things about the CoDA in person meetings is the vulnerability and the intimacy is so big. Like it's hard to bring in. The virtual thing can get hard with the sharing, but we've talked about it in our group conscious. But I'll definitely, if we do, I'll let you know.
Thank
So
you.
I think
They want us to come back for the birthday countdown in the main room.
Okay, let's do it.